This is so weird for me, at least, because I'm so used to your names. I mean, just seeing the names. And it's so weird to see faces attached to their names. I mean,
Yeah, and I know that Leo is a huge fan of most of you guys.
please don't tell them. Please don't tell them. But this is true. This is indeed true. But please don't tell them.
Okay. So we should begin. So this is the PhD thesis defense of Leonardo Mito from the University of São Paulo. I am his advisor, and Héctor Ramírez from the University of Chile is his co-advisor, and he will be joining us in a few minutes. And he has also he's been co-advised by Roberto Andriani, but not formally, at least informally. And he's also here, and some of his co-authors are also here. So yeah, so the committee is joined by Professor Defeng from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, Gabor Pataki from the University of North Carolina, Jérôme Malick from University of Grenoble Alpes in France, and Patrick Mehlitz from the Brandenburgische Technische Universität in Germany. So thank you everybody for accepting our invitation. It's a real pleasure to have you all in our exam. Thanks for accepting the time frames, which it's quite hard for you guys, so we really appreciate you. So the defense will consist of a 40 minutes presentation by Leo, and then the examiners will have plenty of time to ask questions and clarification. And then the board will have a separate meeting. I will send you a Google Meet link so we can meet and discuss. And then we come back to the Zoom to report our results. So that's it. So Leo, you have 40 minutes. Good luck.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for reserving some of your time to be here. It really means a lot to me. And thank you anyway. Regardless of the outcome, I am truly honored. So my thesis is about some random topics in nonlinear conic optimization. This presentation will have 4 parts. In the first part, I'm going to do some literature review. In the second part, I'm going to talk about constant rank conditions, just review the nonlinear programming ones, and introduce a new one of the facial type for nonlinear conic programming. In part 3, in part 3, I'm going to talk about sequential optimality conditions, which is somehow related, but not so much. In part 4, I'm going to present some unorthodox, perhaps illegal uses of AKKT. So let's get started with the basic setup. So we have this cone K, which is a non-empty closed convex cone in a finite dimensional space, which I call Y, and 2 functions, f and g, which are both assumed to be twice continuously differentiable. And then the general form of a nonlinear conic programming problem is this one, where we have to minimize a function f subject to constraints of this type. G of x must belong to k, where x is in Rn. It's all finite dimensional stuff. And the feasible set of this problem I'm going to denote by capital omega. So this is a very general problem. For instance, the standard nonlinear programming problem is the particular case of this one. And so are the semi-definite and second-order cone programming problems. The first thing I must recall about this problem is the Karush-Tucker conditions, or the KKT conditions, which is basically the existence of a Lagrangian multiplier associated with x bar, which is anything satisfying this and this, where nkg is the normal cone to k at g of x bar. So this is basically strong duality for the linearized problem, this one, which approximates all the constraint functions and the cone by the tangent cone. And this is a very important problem because everything we're going to do is based on this one. So the feasible set of this linearized problem we will call the linearized cone or the linearized tangent cone. And the set of Lagrangian multipliers for dual of the linearized problem is the feasible set of the dual of the linearized problem will be called the set of Lagrangian multipliers, which is this capital lambda. And we're mainly interested here in constraint qualification, which are basically any kind of assumption, such that this linearized problem is a good representation of the original problem around X bar, and that it satisfies strong duality. So the weakest possible constraint qualifications are linear and Abadi CQ. So this is the representation part, and this is for the strong duality part. So the closedness of the set H, which is the image of the normal cone through the derivative of the constraint function. The closedness of the set H is the weakest possible CQ for linear conic programming, and this is inherited to the nonlinear case. And there's also metric subregularity, which is basically an error bound condition. There's Robinson CQ, which is perhaps the most popular one, and it has many good properties. For instance, the set of Lagrangian multipliers is bounded under Robinson CQ. It's also known as the metric regularity CQ. And there's also this stronger condition called non-degeneracy or transversality, because it's a transversality between these two spaces. And if we have non-degeneracy, then the set of Lagrangian multipliers is a singleton. So if we introduce a second-order perturbation in the linearized problem, then we can obtain a second-order optimality condition, which is this one. It states that for every direction in this cone, which we call the critical cone, or the cone of critical directions, there exists a Lagrangian multiplier such that this quadratic form is non-negative. This is similar to the nonlinear programming second-order condition, except for the presence of this support function, which is called the sigma term, which is basically here just because the second-order tangent set is not necessarily a cone. And Cominetti, this Roberto Cominetti, he interpreted this term as some sort of curvature term, because this is also the second-order derivative of some sort of semi-infinite representation of K, or something like this. And I think the first person to come up with this was Kawasaki, and then Cominetti, and then Bonans, Cominetti, and Shapiro, but this one is the sharpest one in some sense. Okay, so this condition that I just presented is the most popular one, the most used one, perhaps, and that's why we call it the basic second-order condition, or the basic SOC, or basic SLC, I don't know. So for, as I said, for each direction, there is a Lagrangian multiplier such that this quadratic form is non-negative. But it might not be the best for all scenarios. That's why we are also interested in some variations of this condition. For instance, this if we change the order of the quantifiers. So if there exists a Lagrangian multiplier such that for all directions in the critical cone, this quadratic form is non-negative, we call it the semi-strong second-order condition. It's a strong one when it holds for all Lagrangian multipliers in all directions. And this weak second-order condition, we define it by the existence of Lagrangian multipliers such that for all directions in the largest subspace contained in the critical cone, that second-order condition holds. Right, this is important because this is the one that is more related to algorithms, and the others are, well, they have their own set of applications. So Robinson CQ uses BSOC, the basic one, as I showed before, but not the others, because of an example by Bakari. And non-degeneracy uses the strong SOC, but only because the set of Lagrangian multipliers becomes a singleton. So this whole discussion about existence or for all Lagrangian multipliers is irrelevant in this case. And then there's a natural question. Is it possible to obtain any sort of second-order optimality condition for NCP without assuming uniqueness of Lagrangian multipliers apart from BSOC? So that's the question we want to answer for NCP. In nonlinear programming, the answer is yes, but only because of the so-called constant rank constraint qualification, or CRCQ. So just to recall it briefly, this is a nonlinear programming problem. So inequality constraints, equality constraints, all finite dimensional stuff. And Janine was the first person to introduce constant rank type condition in nonlinear programming. And it holds when for every subset of the equality constraints, for every subset of the active inequality constraints, the rank of this family is preserved in a neighborhood of X bar. Later, Minchenko and Stakovsky, they noticed that taking subsets of the equality constraints was not necessary. So here's what they define as the relaxed CRCQ condition. On the other hand, Xi and Wei, they revisited Jenny's condition by replacing every constant range statement by a constant linear dependence statement. So now for every subset of equality constraints, every subset of inequality constraints, if this is linearly dependent, this linear dependence is carried over to the neighborhood of X bar. And then, perhaps motivated by the Mangasarian-Fromovitz constraint qualification, which is the NLP specialization of Robinson's CQ, they define this, they replace the linear dependence statement by a positive linear dependence, which is with non-negative coefficients. And they define what is known as the constant positive linear dependence, or CPLD condition. All right, so we'll focus on the CRCQ condition first, and then we come back to the CPLD later. But then, well, our main goal is to extend the CRCQ condition to conic programming, and then obtain a second-order optimality condition of the strong type, without assuming uniqueness of multipliers. But then there's a bold question. Why is this not trivial? Because we all know that non-degeneracy, or LICQ, the linear independence constraint qualification, it is the linear independence of a bunch of vectors. And then CRCQ is obtained from LICQ by applying this map or something of the sort. So you replace every linear dependence statement by a local constant range for every subfamily, and then we obtain CRCQ. And then, on the other hand, we also know that in the most relevant contexts, the most relevant particular cases of conic programming, SOCP and SDP, non-degeneracy can be written in terms of the linear independence of a bunch of special vectors. So why isn't it the same strategy? So why don't we simply apply this mapping to this equivalence of non-degeneracy to obtain an extension of RCRCQ or CRCQ? Oh, this is a nice question. This is a nice approach, and this was explored by Zhang and Zhang for SOCP, using characterization of non-degeneracy by Bonanza and Ramírez. However, they obtained something, but this something was not a constraint qualification. So this is not a trivial problem because of this. There's something else that we're not getting. But then the problem may be that CRCQ, as far as I know, was always regarded as a purely technical stuff. So it has always been technical. So why subsets? Why all of them? Why all subsets of active constraints? And why constant range? Why not something else? So because that's what works, I think. And perhaps this is the difficulty in extending this condition, because all of these concepts, they seem inherent to nonlinear programming: subsets, active index, constant range. So this seems inherent to nonlinear programming. If you want to extend this to conic programming, we have two options. The first is to write the conic programming problem as similar as you can to a nonlinear programming problem, the standard one. So we can apply what we know for nonlinear programming. Or the second alternative, we try to obtain a generalizable definition of CRCQ in order to generalize it. So we try the second one. Surprisingly, it seems like no one got interested by a geometric interpretation of CRCQ before. So this is where our contribution starts, I think. So just to present it, let's recall a simple fact. So every subset of this range from 1 to S, it has a one-to-one relationship with the faces of our S plus, which is the non-negative orthant of our S, right? So this is the face. So each index makes a cut in the cone, so you obtain a face of it, but via the canonical basis, I mean. And then the span of this family of vectors that appears in the CRCQ definition, this is basically the image of the complements of this face, I mean, the complements of the span of this face, through the derivative of the active constraints, right? So the rank of this family is the dimension of this space. So, I mean, this might seem obvious, but I mean, it was there for a long time. And so we have our equivalence. So RCRCQ or CRCQ, whatever, holds at x bar if the dimension of this space remains the same in the neighborhood of x bar for every face of this smaller cone, which is just the cone that refers to the active constraints. Okay, now I think we know that subsets are actually faces, but what is this space? At first glance, this space means nothing to me. But if we look at the complement of this space, this is precisely the preimage of the span of f by the derivative of this G calligraphic. So span of f, this is a linear approximation of the cone. This is a linear approximation of the constraint function. So this is a linear approximation of the feasible set. So in geometrical terms, CRCQ means that every possible linear approximation of the feasible set is invariant to small perturbations up to isomorphism. That's why constant ring. So I think we explained this constant ring like this. And this is easier to generalize because if you notice, there's nothing here that is NLP exclusive. So this is generalizable. And then the last ingredient, apart from this active set index. So the last ingredient that we need is a generalization of the idea of active constraints, isolating active constraints. Unfortunately, this is just a particular case of this well-known concept of cone reducibility of Bonazzoli-Shapiro. I won't go through the whole definition, but it basically means that a cone K is reducible to another cone C by a mapping C or Xi when K is locally equivalent to C through Xi, which is this. All right. So as I said before, isolating active constraints is applying a reduction mapping. This one, which is just the active indices. So now we have our definition of a constant ring condition. So we say that this. So now G calligraphic is just a composition of the reduction mapping to G. We are assuming that K is reducible to C at G of x bar. And then we say that this facial constant rank property holds for with respect to the reduction mapping C in a neighborhood of x bar if the dimension of this space remains constant in the neighborhood of x bar. And this is for nonlinear conic program, the general problem. But this is not a constraint qualification yet. This generalizes CRCQ from linear programming, but this is not a constraint qualification because there's one thing missing. This at least ensures that the linearized cone is a good representation of the original problem because it equals the tangent set, the tangent cone. However, we don't have strong duality yet for the linearized problem. So we also need the closedness of the same set H. So if both property holds, then we say that the CRCQ for NCP holds. So this is the main theorem of this first part of my presentation. So if we have CRCQ at a local minimizer, then the set of Lagrangian multipliers is non-empty, although it may not be a singleton. So, and also this quadratic form, which is the one that appears in the second order condition. This is invariant to the choice of Lagrangian multipliers for every direction in the critical cone. And then, since this is non-negative for at least one multiplier, so for every multiplier in every direction, we have this non-negativity inequality. So this is the strong second order condition. And actually, we only need the closedness of H for item 1, because item 2 and 3, they only need the FCR for some reduction mapping. I believe this is the first time CRCQ got a geometric interpretation, even for nonlinear programming. It was a technical stuff before. We have this invariance of the second order condition to the Lagrangian multiplier. So we have the stronger condition. And this is interesting because CRCQ is strictly weaker than non-degeneracy and independence of Robinson CQ. So nothing is getting obsolete. We're just complementing the current literature. We're just saying something where they don't say nothing. I think this sentence is wrong, but okay. But there are a few questions that we don't know how to answer. For instance, is it stable? We don't know. We don't know it because we don't know if H remains closed in a neighborhood if it's closed at X bar. Perhaps this is not true in general, but the question is, if CRCQ holds, does the closedness of H remain in a neighborhood? There's another question that I didn't write here, but under CRCQ, is it possible to obtain any type of derivative formula for the value function? This is the original purpose of CRCQ after all. And then there's an open question also. And then why all faces? I just explained that faces are, that subsets are faces, constant rank is invariance to small perturbations up to isomorphism, but why all faces? Why not some face, only one face? And this we can answer, and indeed we only need one face, which is this one. Is the minimal face, so the smallest face of the, I didn't define face, but we don't need the definition, we just need to think about it as a generalization of extreme points. So it's more than 0-dimensional extreme point. It's a face. So this image of the linearized cone by the derivative of the reduced constraint function, this is basically the image of this function intersected with C. So it's the part of C that matters. So if we get the smallest face of C that contains this part of it that matters, then this is enough for CR, for constant rank condition. This is enough for ensuring existence of Lagrangian multipliers at least. In nonlinear programming, this face we call it Fj minus, because in nonlinear programming, this corresponds to this subset J minus, which was introduced by Nino and friends, and then studied by Kruger, Minchenko, and Otrata. They all noticed that this set was somehow special, and they gave some meaning to it. But then we give another meaning, which is this meaning of being related to the smallest face of the relevant part of C. And then using only this face, we can define this constant rank of the subspace component condition, which also generalizes something from nonlinear programming. And it holds if there is a reduction mapping such that the dimension of this space, only one face now, remains constant in a neighborhood of X bar. And H must be closed also. And some interesting stuff about CRSC. So the set of Lagrange multipliers is also non-empty. It's strictly weaker than CRCQ, strictly weaker than the CPLD condition in whatever context they are defined. It's strictly weaker than Robinson CQ. And also, it has less properties. But we can also define something in between CRSC and CRCQ, which we call strong CRSC, which has the same properties as CRCQ, but it's strictly weaker than it. And this is new even in nonlinear programming. I think this is the most relevant contribution of this first part, but I mean, it was better to present CRSC first, I think. So then, this is just a side comment. This is just a work in progress, but I think it's nice to mention in case anyone gets some insight to give me. If we have CRSC and H indeed remains closed in a neighborhood, and the smallest face of this set is preserved in a neighborhood, and this other condition holds, this holds for SDP and SOCP at least, then there's a neighborhood of X bar such that we can locally replace C by Fj minus. And this somehow resembles to me what is known in the linear conic programming literature as facial reduction preprocessing technique. I'm not sure though, but this resembles facial reduction somehow, and I think this has potential to be something, but for now, this is just a prototype result. And actually, I conjecture that CRC implies items 1 and 2. So perhaps all of these additional hypotheses are not necessary. Okay, so now notice that we didn't present any kind of algorithm-related results regarding CRC, and this is an open question. I think this can also motivate some sort of use of facial reduction in algorithms regarding nonlinear conic programming problems instead of only linear programming. But even if you get a positive answer, even if there are algorithms supported by CRC or CRCQ, how can we check it? How can we use it in practice? This is hard. So we usually don't even have access to the limit points. So it's hard to check CQs in practice. Then we have another question. In the absence of constraint qualifications, without relying on them, what can we obtain? And actually, do algorithms really need CQs? This is, to answer these questions, we have sequential optimality conditions. These are popular in nonlinear programming and variance. Recently, they have been extended to conic programming. But then we have this extension for the general problem of nonlinear conic programming. So basically, sequential optimality conditions, without defining anything, they are necessary optimality conditions with approximate certificates that can be computed in practice. So I'll give a meaning to this sentence later. Remember, just this is not a proof. This is an intuitive construction of the first sequential optimality condition. Well, remember the KKT conditions, it is a strong duality for the linearized problem. However, the linearized problem may be degenerate, so they're not Lagrange multipliers for all local minimizers. But degeneracy is a rare I don't know how to say this word. Non-degeneracy is a generic property. So we can expect that there is a sequence of perturbations of the linearized problem such that all of these are non-degenerates. So there are strong duality holds for all of them, for all of these perturbations. And then there are Lagrange multipliers for all of these perturbations. And this is what we call an approximate Lagrange multiplier. The sequence of all approximate Lagrange multipliers, well, this always exists for all local minimizers, but this sequence may diverge, right? So, and every time a point has this associate approximate Lagrange multiplier sequence, then we call it an approximate KKT or an AKKT point. Well, as I said before, every local minimizer is AKKT. And under Robinson's CQ, AKKT and KKT are the same because if that sequence converges, then we have a Lagrange multiplier. The converse is not true, so there are weaker conditions than Robinson's CQ that also guarantee that AKKT and KKT are the same. And the weakest of all we call AKKT regularity. So notice this. Compare this with Guignard CQ. Guignard CQ is the weakest CQ. That guarantees existence of Lagrange multipliers, and it's given by mainly by the closedness of a set H. This is H for the perturbed problem, and if this perturbation is continuous in some sense, then we say that AKKT regularity holds. So in particular, this implies the closedness of H at delta equal to 0, and then well, this is the weakest condition that ensures that KKT and AKKT are the same. So now to illustrate how to use, so what's this for, right? So to illustrate how to use AKKT, we'll give an example using the augmented Lagrangian method. This is an extended form of the PHR augmented Lagrangian function. And the implementation of the ALM method that we choose is the Auger-Kahn implementation, which is from this book for nonlinear programming. So, but extending it for conic programming is straightforward. So what makes Auger-Kahn is the use of safeguard, which is meant for numerical stability in the subproblems. I'll present the algorithm later. And the use of this penalty parameter control using this specific measure of feasibility and complementarity. So this is the method. First, we try to minimize the augmented Lagrangian function up to first order approximate stationarity. Then we update the multiplier. We choose a projection onto the unit ball or any other compact set. And then we compute this measure of feasibility and complementarity. If we have gained enough feasibility, then we keep the parameter as is. Otherwise, we increase it. So that's it. And this is how we use AKKT. So for every choice of parameters and every output sequence of the methods, we are assuming that the method has not failed completely. So there's at least one cluster point of this sequence. So this point is at least stationary for the problem of minimizing infeasibility. And if the solution of this problem is equal to 0, so if the point is actually feasible, then this point is guaranteed to be AKKT, at least. How to prove this is a 2-line proof in the slides, which we just need to say who are the sequences. So this is computed by the method. This is also computed by the method. This delta is equal to the VK, the measure of VK, which is also computed. And this is also computed in the stationary phase. So everything we need to prove that X bar satisfies AKKT is already computed by the method. So in practice, we don't need X bar. If we have a sequence converging to some X bar, and this point seems to be converging to something feasible, then the certificates of optimality of this X bar with respect to AKKT, they are computed during the execution of the method. So this is how we compute it, using a standard method. But then, to improve this, we notice that saying that Algincan generates AKKT points, it means that it ignores all of the non-optimal points that do not satisfy AKKT. So if we can replace AKKT by something stronger in the other condition, then we get to ignore more non-optimal points, so the method is more reliable in this sense. And then the first stronger than AKKT condition that we have is this approximate gradient projection condition, which is obtained by perturbing the linearized problem, not from the inside, before we had from the inside, but now from the outside. So we perturb the normal cone by an epsilon. And then we also have this complementary AKKT condition. There are plenty of them. And then this is stronger than AKKT, and this is stronger than AGP. So in the augmented Lagrangian method, it generates AGP sequences, and under some hypothesis, it generates also CAKT sequences. Actually, the fact that the augmented Lagrangian generates AGP sequences, this was new. Even in nonlinear programming, only one method was proven to generate this kind of sequence before, which is known as the inexact restoration class of methods. And then this somehow relates augmented Lagrangians with inexact restoration methods. And of course, since under Robinson's CQ, AKKT and KKT are the same, if Robinson's CQ holds, then we recover the standard global convergence theory. So you notice that this kind of convergence theory using AKKT is completely trivial, at least for the augmented Lagrangian, and it recovers the standard way of doing this under Robinson's CQ. So KKT points now. Just to go beyond the augmented Lagrangian method, because we always use the augmented Lagrangian as an example, but it's not only the augmented Lagrangian one that can be used. For instance, SQP methods, they have convergence theories built upon sequential conditions. IP methods, this shifted parallel dual method, and as I said before, inexact restoration methods. There are also several other variants of AKKT for several contexts, mainly nonlinear programming related contexts, even non-smooth problems and MPEC cardinality constraints. So there are many friends of AKKT, as I said. And there's also some conic extensions, for instance, for SDP, SOCP, and even for Banach spaces. This one's very nice, at least. And so just a pause for organizing thoughts. So sequential optimality conditions, they are first order conditions with certificates that can be computed by standard optimization methods, and it doesn't depend on CQs. And each sequential condition induces a constraint qualification that is characterized by the continuity of some perturbation of the set H. This unifies because AKKT, everything we do for AKKT extends to every method that is supported by AKKT. So this unifies and sometimes trivializes the global convergence theory of several methods. And a nice thing about it is that the main idea behind AKKT and all of its proofs, it's almost the same for every context. So there are several technical details that make this extension not trivial, but the idea, the framework is always the same. We always know what to expect, where we want to get, just because of the AKKT structure. And this is perfect for intricate contexts. Well, this use in algorithms, this is the standard way of using AKKT, but there are also some unorthodox uses of it as theoretical tools for proving stuff. For instance, one thing that we did was to completely represent the augmented Lagrangian method using a sequential optimality condition. So this we call this the AL AKKT. So a point x bar satisfies AL AKKT if and only if it is a limit point of a sequence generated by the Augen-Kahn method. So this is a complete representation of the Augen-Kahn method. And we can use this to compare several variations of the Augen-Kahn method, ultimately being optimistic. We can also compare other methods using this kind of tool. And then, by extension, this AL AKKT condition is also a sequential optimality condition, so it has a minimum constraint qualification, a weakest constraint qualification that ensures that AL AKKT is the same as KKT, which we call AL regularity. And by extension, this is the weakest constraint qualification that supports the global convergence theory of the augmented Lagrangian method. Well, there's also this use of AKKT that we revisited the non-degeneracy condition, because it's well known that at least in nonlinear semi-definite programming, the non-degeneracy condition has a problem with sparsity. So if we have any kind of sparsity in the constraints, non-degeneracy is most likely to break. So we use the sequential conditions to revisit non-degeneracy. So we consider this mapping, which is basically all the matrices that has the eigenvectors associated with the m-r smallest eigenvalues of this matrix M in its columns, orthonormalized. And then it's a known result by Shapiro and Fenn that non-degeneracy holds if and only if, for each fixed matrix in this set at G of x bar, non-degeneracy holds at x bar if and only if these vectors, which are basically the gradients of the active block of G, are linearly independent. So then we turn some things around. So non-degeneracy holds at x bar if and only if for every matrix, now for every matrix in this set, these vectors are linearly independent. And then we need less vectors because we are only taking VII instead of VIJ. So there's significantly less vectors, but then we have for all matrices. Then we can relax this non-degeneracy definition by taking not all matrices, but for each sequence converging to x bar, there must be one matrix in the lim sup of this set instead of ER of G of x bar. So we call this weak non-degeneracy. This also ensures the existence of Lagrange multipliers. This supports the convergence theory of an external penalty method. And this is strictly weaker than non-degeneracy. And in particular, when your constraint function is of the diagonal type of the block or the block diagonal of the diagonal type, then we recover the LICQ condition for its diagonal, which is not true under non-degeneracy. And then using this kind of strategy, this was proved using sequential conditions, using AKKT. And using this kind of strategy, we can also define the sequential variance of CRCQ. Well, I won't go to the definition because it's mostly technical. Now it's technical again, not geometrical. But basically, it's kind of the same. But notice that we cannot relax. Zhang and Zhang, they taught us that we cannot relax non-degeneracy the same way as LICQ is relaxed in nonlinear programming to obtain an extension of CRCQ. But if we do this to weak non-degeneracy, then we do obtain an extension of CRCQ. So this is what we call sequential CRCQ. This is actually a perturbed version of it. Well, this is of the sequential type. Is a sequential type constraint qualification, just like the quasi-normality and this kind of stuff. But it doesn't need to be of the sequential type. There is an equivalence of this condition that is in terms of neighborhoods and resembling more the traditional CRCQ. Well, some facts. Every property of CRCQ that we did not obtain using the facial definition, we did obtain using the sequential definition. For instance, CRCQ and CPLD actually. Well, I said that we would come back to CPLD later. So using this technique, we obtain this relaxation of CRCQ, and relaxing this relaxation further, we can obtain this sequential CPLD. This is locally stable, meaning that if it holds for x bar, then it also holds in a neighborhood of feasible points around X bar. This implies the metric subregularity CQ, and every method that is supported by HKT is also supported by sequential CPLD. And this also holds for CRCQ. So the only property of CRCQ missing to extend is the derivative of the value function. Well, sequential CPLD is also strictly weaker than sequential CRCQ, strictly weaker than Robinson CQ, and the sequential CRCQ is independent of Robinson CQ and strictly weaker than non-degeneracy. Also, so this is some sort of conclusion section. We covered the facial definition of CRCQ, CRC, AKT, and the sequential definitions of CRCQ. But we didn't cover some things more, which I am going to say because I have 1 minute and a half. So we also defined this weak constant rank property, which well, the main message here is that we could obtain an extension of the weak second order condition, which is related to algorithms using constant rank and also using Robinson CQ. So this thing that we defined as weak constant rank property, this modifies the second order condition that comes from Robinson CQ, which is the weak one. It's nice because there is no known algorithm that has its convergence theory supported by one of the strong second order conditions. The only one that is related to algorithm is this weak CQ, weak second order condition. And we don't assume strict complementarity. So this is a valid result. And the sequential CRCQ and CPLD condition, they also admit a weak variance, the same way as the weak non-degeneracy relaxes the non-degeneracy condition. And we also could explore an idea of Forsgren, of exploiting sparsity structure. But Forsgren uses sparsity for a transformation of the problem, and then we were able to define a simpler condition regarding sparsity of a simpler transformation. So that's basically it, and we called it a sparse non-degeneracy condition. This covers the case, this solves the issue of non-degeneracy with sparsity. Well, that's it. Thank you for your attention. Now I'm open to questions, and this is the University of São Paulo, in case you never saw it. So thank you.
Thank you, Leo. It was a quite nice presentation. So we'll start with the questions from the board. So I think due to the time difference, I suggest we start with Professor Defeng.
Thank you very much, Gabriel and Leon. This wonderful talk and presentation. So let me ask Sarah a couple of simple questions. So now you talk about the CR at C, right?
Okay.
So and the CR at C, the multipliers may not be unique, right?
Yes, that's true.
So here's the question. If we assume CR at C and the uniqueness of the Lagrangian multipliers, so these two conditions are equivalent to non-degeneracy or not? Did you get my question, right? If we assume non-degeneracy, so we assume uniqueness first. Is CR at C equivalent to non-degeneracy? So that's the question.
I think one way to prove this is to show that CRC implies strict complementarity, which I think is not true. So I think the answer for your question is not true, but I think I cannot prove it. Let me think.
That's okay. I just only question for you to think, right? It's something I don't have a clear picture in my mind. That's okay.
That's a nice question. One thing that I was thinking about, by the way, is that perhaps under CRSC, I think the Lagrangian multiplier set is not even bounded, but I think there is a cut of it that is bounded.
I understand. It's not about unbounded. Otherwise, it's CRCQ, right? So otherwise, it's a Robinson condition, right? It's unbounded.
But I think there's a cut of it that is bounded, or something like this, a special cut.
But we assume uniqueness. We have imposed lots of conditions, right?
Yes.
So there's a question for you to think. So that's not real challenge question. Maybe I don't know. So let me ask another question about the algorithm. You presented some augmented Lagrangian method. Can we go to the augmented Lagrangian method?
Yes. Please, could you give me just some time so I can take notes?
Yeah.
Uniqueness
That's
plus
okay.
CRSC.
Yeah. If you assume uniqueness, is CRSC equivalent to non-degeneracy now?
Oh, that's a nice question. I took notes.
So let's go to let's go to the algorithm. I'm more familiar with the algorithms. Yeah.
The augmented Lagrangian.
The augmented Lagrangian method, right? So of course, here you presented a local augmented Lagrangian method for solving non-convex optimization problem, right?
Yes.
Here I change the question a little bit. Suppose we are working on convex SDP problem, even linear convex SDP now. But we do not assume that this is the Robinson condition, right? So what kind of convergence we can talk about? So even nonlinear problem, we even cannot talk about the convergence, the boundariness of the iteration sequences, right? Nothing can be guaranteed for the boundariness. How about if they happen to be convex, but we do not assume Robinson's constant qualification. So what kind of conclusions we can talk about the convergence?
Well, the convergence to AKKT is at least the same. So however, I'm not. Oh, sorry.
So for the convex case, AKKT and KKT are the same?
No, they're not the same.
Okay.
But I think, let me think, because then I think Gabriel can answer this better. But I think when we are in the convex case, AKT is also sufficient for optimality.
Okay.
But I think it's not the same as KKT. No. For sure.
I know, Leon, you are more working on non-convex problem. For me, I'm trying to understand, right? So what happens for the convex problem? So my question essentially are quite not closely related to your talk, but there's some question that came to my mind. I want to know the answer.
I think I cannot answer this with certainty, but I think we don't get many things when we specialize AKT for the convex case.
Okay.
I might be wrong, but I think the theory is almost it's roughly the same.
So actually, I asked you two questions. They are related. So my major question is on how to solve the sub-problems of the augmented Lagrangian method, right?
Yes, this is with any sort of unconstrained method.
Yeah, that's my concern, because if let's say the Haeser of the Lagrangian function is non-singular or not, all these kind of things. Yeah. So I'm more concerned because I'm going to implement your algorithm, right? This all the difficulty has come to my mind. That's why I asked this question.
Yes, I think a BFGS method is suitable, even in this case.
It's difficult for BFGS for solving this non-convex problem. It's difficult to get the good accurate solutions. So your epsilon k need to drive to 0, right? Yeah. So that's very difficult. In theory, you can use any algorithm to solve this problem, but in practice, maybe no algorithms works.
We actually tried with a BFGS once, and we obtained something weird because either we're getting the feasibility to go to 0, or the stationarity, but it was hard to get both to vanish simultaneously.
That's difficult. Anyway, this is a very difficult question. So your augmented Lagrangian method is a classical one, or you have made some modifications?
There are modifications.
Yeah, that's something I'm also want to ask you, because you look at step 3, you have some modification, right?
Yes, there's this.
So this is step 3. If we k less than equal to the sigma we k minus 1. So this part is critical.
And this one is also critical because here we use the mu tilde instead of the mu. This is what we call the safeguarding technique. We replace mu by mu2 just to make this problem more numerically stable.
Okay.
And in theory, this is roughly the same. Sorry?
So Leon, because this is necessary because they are non-convex problem, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think I have asked enough questions, Gabriel. I think I will leave the opportunity to other colleagues.
So thank you a lot for your question.
Thank you.
I'm gonna think about that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Uniqueness plus CRC.
Okay, thank you for your questions. So now maybe we should move to Jérôme Malick from France. Do you have questions, please?
Yes. So first, I would like to congratulate you, Leonardo. Congratulate you 3 times for your presentation, very clear, for your very nice manuscript, and for all the work you have done during this PhD. Let me also take the chance to thank Gabriel and Héctor for having me in this committee. So nonlinear conic optimization was my entry door in optimization, my first love, I would say. And I'm very glad to have the chance to read some recent developments and to be part of this defense. So about your document, I would like to emphasize how well it is, because you have found a way to present the state of the art and your contributions, and in a very readable, very smooth, and yeah, it was pleasant to read. And I would like to say also that for my standards in France, your PhD is exceptional in terms of the number of publication or pre-publication that are related to it. And in fact, you also have results that are not in your papers.
Yes.
In the document. So, and or some extension of some of your results of your papers that you put in your thesis. So it's much material, but in your document, you avoided the trap of saying everything. You made some right choices, skipping some technical proof and referring instead to papers. And well, I found it well structured and also well written. I appreciated your effort to put your results in words and not only give math. And this is something that we saw also during your presentation. You explain your result, the interconnections between the result, the state of the art, and you also between math and words and sentences, you know. And so I know that it takes time. It's not easy, but you did it well for your presentation as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And my PhD advisor, Claude Le Maréchal, used to tell me something like, you have to hide art by art, which meant once you have made the effort of producing some math, new math, then you have to make the extra effort to make it accessible by the others. And this is something that, well, it's sometimes overlooked by researchers, but I think it's a mistake, and you don't do it. And I think you do it. I mean, you do this extra effort very in a very nice way, and it's one of your talents that you should keep after your PhD.
Thank you.
Well, in short, a very technical topic, but very pleasant to read. Your manuscript is very pleasant to read. So congrats also for that.
Thank you.
Okay. So all this being said, I still have some questions. Well, it's absolutely clear that you are really expert on constraint qualification and that you master everything on your domain. So I would like to take a step back and ask you some question on the boundary of your work. So, okay, it's important indeed to have guarantees for optimization algorithm. beyond classical non-degeneracy, transversality, or bounded Lagrange multiplier, or other standard cases. So in your work, you studied such generalized conditions, but you have not pushed too much the algorithmic aspects. So you presented your results on augmented Lagrangian. You also have mentioned in your slide, it was one slide before the AKKT and friends. In your manuscript, it's page 47.
This one.
So you mentioned the interest of your work for other potential algorithms that do not exist yet. So could you comment on that? Is it something that you are working on or that you are willing to work on?
Well, yes and no, because I think that but let's go by parts. There's two kinds of constraint qualifications that I put more focus on, which are the sequential type and the facial type. The sequential type, it's very related to AKKT, this AKKT condition. And this AKKT condition is a form of unifying convergence theories of several methods. All of these, for instance, in nonlinear programming. And should any of these methods be extended to the nonlinear conic programming context, I think, I believe actually, I just believe that our extension of AKKT will help in building the convergence theory of these extensions. Especially because they are simpler once they are done. That's it. So yes, we explore these algorithmic results for the sequential type constraint qualifications. However, it's true that I didn't think much of the algorithm related applications of the facial type. But I think I just have actually one idea that can be used. For instance, if we have an SQP method, so we have that linearized problem in the subproblems, and then it's known that it's not always non-degenerate. So we need Lagrange multipliers for that subproblems, and they don't always exist. But then I think performing a facial reduction step in this subproblem may be the answer to get this subproblem well defined. Then we get Lagrange multipliers, and then the problem that we get is a sequence of faces that converge to something. And then we also need this kind of constraint qualification that is able to grasp the idea of minimal phase somehow. And that's how I think CRSC, the CRSC condition, can be used in the algorithm setting. But I didn't have much time to think about it. And I am not sure if I'm going to continue pursuing working academic work.
Okay. Because my question actually is somehow a little related to the question of Defeng. When we use augmented Lagrangian, we know that we might run into some numerical trouble because of some scaling problems or ill-conditioned linear algebra. And do you think that some of the conditions that you considered and introduced could help for augmented Lagrangian, but for other type of algorithm, to quantify such bad numerical behaviors?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I understood the question.
Okay, so maybe what I wanted to say is that there is maybe here something that I missed in your thesis. It's a little numerical study, or no need of big data, or I don't know, just little something. In your document, you give along your document, you give a lot of some theoretical examples and counter examples, and I would have been interested to see some more practical examples or counter examples. And have you considered this option, or what is your? Can you comment on this?
Oh, this is true. It lacks numerical tests. it's true. Well, we are currently in the middle of a project where we explore this this more numerical side along with Mito, which is who is also listening. Which is like this: we have a cone. We approximate this cone by a sequence of cones, and then we use in the augmented Lagrangian method one cone, one approximation for each iteration, and then we want to, the theory for this method is really easy if we follow the AKT approach, but then the numerical experiments are the real issue, and we are currently doing some tests, some experience for this project.
Okay. Because in my way of seeing it, the way I see it is about these conditions. It's not really, the question is not really is it satisfied or not, but rather how much is it satisfied, or could this be quantified somehow? In other words, maybe is there something equivalent to a condition number? Because from my experience in specific situations, condition number control the speed of convergence of simple algorithms, and they also quantify how more advanced algorithm can behave or in practice. So, do you have an opinion of this?
No, on this kind of quantification, I think. Okay.
Because you mentioned, for me, what is also important in that matters is the constant in Error bounds, for example, or the constant in Lugasiewicz property. So you mentioned in your document yes, some generalized Lugasiewicz property. Could you discuss this a little bit?
Yes, it's just for the C-AKT condition. So I said that the augmented Lagrangian has this convergence in terms of AKT. This requires nothing. In AGP, if we replace this by AGP, this also requires nothing. But if we want a convergence to 8 C-AKT points, then this is only true if we have that generalized Lagrangian property. Okay. But I don't remember seeing in nonlinear programming, and I didn't do it either, any kind of study that relates the constant in the Lagrangian property, or that function, that norm, or the norm of the function parameter, with the rate of convergence of a C-AKT sequence. Basically, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were asking about the rates of convergence of the AKT or C-AKT sequence. Is it correct?
Partly. I'm also discussing more generally how we can, quantify either the linear convergence, or if we have a superlinear or quadratic algorithm, we quantify what we can expect with respect to the underlying geometry, what we can expect as a behavior. And it is also related to the metric subregularity and the modulus of subregularity, which come into play here. So yeah, okay, but I think that's a natural question if you consider some condition, and the next step would be to go to something more quantified, let's say. Okay.
Yeah, and I think I also need a second-order sufficient condition for that, right?
Not necessary, I think. But there is much to do here, I think. Let me finish by something important that I forgot to mention at the beginning. So something that I liked very much in your work is the geometrical interpretation of your results. And for example, what you presented in, I think it's in chapter 4 of your document, and you represented it in your slide, faces in place of subsets. And it's a very, actually the geometrical interpretation is like a common theme in your work. So, but especially here, it was so it's nicely it was very attractive and nicely presented. So I'm gonna stop here with this good point to emphasize.
Thank you. I like that it's really simple. It's really preliminary.
Yeah, but it's on your next slide. You somehow maybe again the next you somehow derive a theorem. Yeah, I like this. I like this theorem. This is my my favorite one in your document.
Thanks a lot, Jérôme, for your comments and questions. So maybe we should move to Gabor Pataki from the University of North Carolina, please.
Hi, it's okay. So that one, again, let me start with congratulating you. It's very nice work. I think you actually should consider pursuing academic career because, I mean, with this kind of dissertation, I think it would be, I mean, I think it would be a good idea to actually try a postdoc or something, even if you are in industry right now. So I just have two simple questions. You are talking about weak non-degeneracy, right? So let's just simplify this to linear semi-definite programming. Yeah, exactly. So linear semi-definite programming, I know that if primal optimal solution is non-degenerate, then the dual optimal solution is unique. So what if I only assume that the primal optimal solution is weakly non-degenerate? What does it say about the dual? Just if I look at linear semi-definite programming.
That's a very nice question. That's something that we pursued for a long time, and I couldn't answer it. I couldn't answer it in any way. If one thing that I was suspecting is that the dual solution would not be unique. This is for sure. For sure, the dual solution is not unique. I think we have an example. I think I wrote an example in the paper where weak non-degeneracy appears. I'm not sure, but I'm almost sure that I wrote this example. And well, for now, I can assure that the multiplier is not unique.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah.
Yes, but I think what was the conjecture? I forgot because it was a long time ago. But I think the conjecture was that the multiplier is unique by bets, whatever it makes sense, unique by bets or something like this. Because we were thinking about
examples, for example, which are weakly non-degenerate but not non-degenerate. Maybe from the examples you can come up with some theory.
Perhaps. One thing that we were trying is to replace sequences by curves, by differentiable curves, just to see if we get some stronger property. But I think we didn't develop this much.
I think that would be interesting. I mean, let's just trying some examples and see what you get out of it. And the next question about that is that if you look at just linear programming, then weak non-degeneracy, I presume, is the same as regular non-degeneracy, right?
Even for linear problems, I think not.
It's not the same thing. Wow.
Not the same thing. Because even for linear problems, an example I think would be a linear problem with a constraint that is strictly diagonal, just diag of something.
Yeah.
Non-degeneracy will at zero at the vertex. Non-degeneracy will always fail, and weak non-degeneracy may hold as long as this diag of x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. So this fulfills weak non-degeneracy, but non-degeneracy fails.
Okay, so I guess one can go back to linear programming and try to say something about what weak non-degeneracy implies about the dual, right?
Yes.
It doesn't get simpler than linear, right? So
yes, this problem fulfills weak non-degeneracy, but it doesn't fulfill non-degeneracy.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that would be interesting. The other last question is that So I looked at your thesis. It's nicely written. It's very nice. I mean, I don't want to repeat what others said because I mean, there's, you know, why should I do that? So I have some work about just linear semi-definite programs. You know, when the Lagrange multipliers exist, you know, when what do I have to assume about the well-behavedness of the primal so that the dual always has a solution and there is no duality gap? Is there a way to look into that, how that generalizes to nonlinear?
Well, yes, I think the answer is via the linearized problem. I mean, almost everything we have for the linear case has some meaning in the nonlinear case when we look at the linearized problem. So this one. So almost all constraint qualifications are inherited from the linear case, and everything is inherited.
Oh, okay, I see. So you can basically just write down those constraint qualifications about the maximum rank slack and those excluded matrices, and that would apply in this context as well.
Perhaps yes. I cannot say for sure, but perhaps yes.
I see. Okay, I mean that's what I wanted to say. I mean, it's very nice. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Gabor, for your comments. So the last speaker is Patrick Mehlitz from Germany. Patrick, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leonardo, first for your nice talk. It was very enjoyable to be here. 45 minutes of the best entertainment. And your thesis also was very, very fine to read, compactly written, as already pointed out, not with all the proofs, but it was nice flying through it. I have no time to go into the details, but yeah, it was a very fine thing. And yeah, now I have some questions, and I think you can answer them, I think, with ease. I will start with something simple. Again, with respect to your augmented Lagrangian method, where you presented the two-line proof. Maybe you can go to the theorem.
Yes. I think this one.
This one, yeah. The proof, I was actually wondering about the delta. I think the delta is wrong here, or am I wrong?
Is it minus VK?
The delta should be minus the derivative of the Lagrangian, right? Because delta must be something in the primal space X and no number.
Ah, you mean the small delta?
Yeah, the small delta should be some element of the primal space X. So the norms are superfluous.
Yeah, true. You're right.
Yeah, the delta should be minus the Lagrangian derivative.
This is mu k, yes, and this is mu k and not mu tilde. You're right.
That was just one thing I observed. So that was the only bug I found in the slides, actually. Okay, and now come the serious questions. That was just for fun. Okay, we already talked about this generalized Lazarevich property you need for CAKKT.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering whether you have some examples available where this property holds naturally. So a combination of a cone K and a mapping G where this property holds.
Well, I may be very wrong, but I think when G is when the distance function between G and K is analytic, I think this property always holds true. I'm just not sure if it for an arbitrary, if it must be a cone, if it must be a set, or for a general cone this is true, but I'm almost sure. If the distance or the distance squared, I think it's the distance function.
Yeah, so I can imagine if the distance function is analytic and if G is analytic, then everything is fine. Yeah, sounds reasonable. I don't have an idea. I never worked with this property. That's why I was asking. And okay, another question. Yeah, regarding the constraint qualifications in your PhD thesis, you speak about constant rank conditions on the one hand and on sequential CQs on the other one. So in standard nonlinear programming, it's quite simple to see that if we have CRCQ, then we have AKKT regularity. Yeah. So what about this conic programming situation?
Well, the sequential ones, they do imply a KT regularity, which is this, wait. Well, which is this, a consequence of this item 3.
Mm-hmm.
However, about the other one, it's still an open problem. Is the one I want to answer the most. If the facial one, it's very hard to find a relationship between the facial CRCQ and anything related to AKT, but it's this one. I don't know the relation, but it's something that I really would like to know.
Yeah. Yeah, most likely it will be difficult because the standard reasoning, I think you see in the NLP case, is absolutely not touchable here. Okay, then another thing regarding convexity. All your story benefits from the convexity of K. So I wanted to know what happens if the K is just a closed cone and not a closed convex cone. So what happens, for example, in second order cone complementarity programming? So where are the limits of your results, and which results potentially can be extended to this more general situation?
That's an awesome question. This is also something that we were trying to me and my friends we were trying to answer, but for the moment we couldn't get anything.
So, for example, the AKKT conditions are simply to obtain because. Okay, you cannot use the normal cone from convex analysis, but you can use the normal cone of Boris, and so you get something like an approximate sequential optimality condition, and you can also define the sequential CQs in this more general situation, because this variational tools of Boris are robust in some sense, and that's why it also works there. But for example, in this situation, we also have something like CRCQ. For example, in MPCCs, yeah, there are MPCC, CRCQ, and all this stuff. So I was wondering whether something like this could also be possible in conic complementarity programming, at least for the specific structures. So this is what you want. This is what you want to do then in the future, or your working group.
Yeah, perhaps yes. But I think for this complementarity, this MPCC context, I think the facial definition of CRCQ has more future.
Yeah, potentially.
You know, because I mean, we don't have convexity, but we can work with each of the. I mean, it's not like this, but we can work with each convex part. Yeah, each convex component separately. Yes.
But in this non-destructive situation, if you have so let's say if you have curvature, then everything gets difficult again.
Yes. Yes, that's true. That's true. That's also true.
Okay. And the final question, maybe just for your imagination. The following is true for NLPs, or even for more general problems of the type you're considering. If you have a local minimizer, then if you know that the metric subregularity constraint qualification holds, you know, there is a directional version of metric subregularity. Helmut Gefrerer is dealing with this stuff a lot. And if you have metric subregularity only in critical directions, then you know that you have the KKT condition. So you do not need metric subregularity in all directions, but only in the interesting ones.
Yes.
And I was wondering whether it's also possible to get some parallel statement of the following type. So if you have a local minimizer, do we get some more information about the AKKT sequences? So are they somehow related to critical directions, or are they not? can they be arbitrary, or do AKKT sequences have something to do with critical directions?
That's a good question. That's a good question. There's another question that I cannot answer. I think they are not really. If I'm gonna guess, I would say that they are not related. But there's something related that I can comment about, which is since you talked about the directional metric subregularity. We were also thinking about replacing these sequences by directions, in the sense that for each direction there must be an E-bar satisfying some properties. But I think that's the most we can think of. This is the most I can think of right now.
So I was also thinking about this, and it's technically difficult.
Yes.
But I think actually the good thing is, if you have a local minimizer, then you get AKT sequences with respect to a direction. But I think it is algorithmically not really interesting, because I think in augmented Lagrangian methods, the XKs potentially they have nothing to do with critical direction. So with the algorithmic part, it does not make any sense, but with respect to the CQ part, it does. So it's a little bit a mixture of pros and cons when you work with directions there. Okay, but that was just some open question. And from my side, that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you for the discussion, and thank you for the nice talk again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for you all, for your questions, for your comments.
Thank you, Patrick. So now we have some time for the audience to talk. Héctor, do you want to say anything?
Hi, Gabriel. Hi. I was not sure if I could or not make questions, but anyway. Okay, so first, a general comment, I have to say that it has been a real pleasure to work with Leo all these years. We have regular meetings. We had regular meetings every week. Now Leo is a little bit busy with his new job, but I somehow completely share the opinion of Gabor Pataki that he had to try. I would like that he tried to do something in academia soon. It has been also a pleasure to work with people in Brazil. These colleagues are very friendly and know a lot of constant rank, and it was a very nice combination. This constant rank and conic issues, right? It was, to me, very interesting. I learned a lot. And regarding the thesis and the presentation themselves, they reflect a lot what Leo actually decided. Many things we give him some advices, but the way he presented the structure of the thesis, actually they were fully, I would say, decided by Leo. So this is something that I would like to stress out as well. Just maybe two small questions, Leo, to general, of course, to you. We have here like two different, well, several, but at least two different extension of constant rank to linear conic programming, right? I mean, facial and sequential, right?
Yes.
We somehow have been, or I have been convinced that it's not clear what is the good, because actually, as you show, actually, some of them has advantage theoretical, or other are more easy to understand geometrically, other sequential is closer to algorithms. But you, what do you think? If you have to choose one, or I don't know, if you guys have to pursue the studies around one and not other, what is the best extension to you?
The facial one, hands down, facial one.
Why?
Because I mean, this is more personal, but I think that if I can understand something geometrically, this is better. just I mean, it's a poor argument, but I mean, And I think the facial one is the less explored of them all, because AKKT is a canon. AKKT is a canon. It enables us to get a lot of properties of everything without much, I mean, if we use AKKT, there's a solid framework that we can follow to obtain results, theoretical results. But it's quite natural that we can obtain more of AKKT related stuff in less time. I think the facial one needs more time, more effort, but I think it's better in the long run.
Nice that you mentioned facial one, because I have a question about it also. Do you have an idea how far is facial condition with respect to metrics to regularity? Or have you an idea how to prove that it's stronger, or I don't know?
Well, the only idea that I have, another question that I cannot answer. That's very nice, Héctor. Thank you. Well, I think the key argument is to prove that this very friendly set H, that it remains closed in a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, as I said, perhaps most likely it's not true. It's not true that H of x bar being closed implies that H of x is closed in the neighborhood of x bar. This is probably not true. However, if CRSC or CRSQ holds, then I think this is true. And this would be the key argument. If this is true, then it implies metric subregularity.
Good, thank you. That's all what I had to say. Congratulations again, Leo, and we keep in touch, I hope.
Thank you.
Thanks, Héctor. So anyone else in the audience want to say something? Felipe, Walter, Nino, Mito, Ellen?
I want to say. I gave the very first nonlinear optimization course to Leo on the undergraduate, so it's a very good to see you doing so well, and congratulations for all the work. Certainly, you deserve such a high qualified council to do your PhD exam. So congratulations to everything. And as everyone said, it's a shame that you won't stay in academia now. Maybe you can change your mind, but I just want to say that even it's a shame that we can't work with you academically, we can work in such our discipline in resolution of problems using mathematical modeling, that you also was part of the team here. So it will be a pleasure if you come back with very nice problems on the industry for us that certainly you will have. So
that's something I would like. This is something I would like. Thank you.
Yeah. Ok, anyone else? Nino, pode ser em português, se você quiser falar.
Muito bom, Mito. Congratulations. Okay.
Okay, anyone else?
So I wanted to say this is an impressive piece of work what Leo did in a couple of years. I remember when he was first time here in Temuco, and I see the long road he has been going on and working with quite different tools to answer and to push forward knowledge in many different ways. And I congrats to Leo. I mean, anything you are going to do in the future is going to be very well if you do that with this kind of effort and success. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Remember, Temuco was the first paper. Very nice. Learned a lot.
Yes.
And I saw snow for the first time. Because Walter drove me about 1.5 hours into the mountain. Thank you.
Okay, now that people are talking, I also want to say to Leo, congratulations for your PhD. And it was really sad that you couldn't come to Japan. Yeah, that was really sad, but I hope whatever choice you do, academia or industry, I wish you success. And thank you for working with me also.
Thank you. It is I who have to thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so let just me say a few things about Leo and his work. So Leo has been working with me for 6 years now. He did his master's with me. Actually, I was his professor at the undergraduate level in his first year. He evolved a lot from that point, and he did a wonderful PhD. Of course, we had many help from many co-authors, but Leo was for sure the driving force of our team. That there's no doubt. He had many new and interesting ideas of his own, and he was able to talk with us as a specialist. So it's quite unique, his abilities, mathematical abilities in working with us. So we were quite impressed with his mathematical talent, and with a bonus that he's really a good writer. So he wrote the papers, all the papers himself. We had very few inputs on the paper. He has his own ideas on how to write, and it was really, really good to work with him. Actually, the hard part was convincing him that the kind of things that we wanted to do, because he has his own ideas, and it's really hard to convince him to do something else that he does not agree at all. But and also he's very easygoing person, so it's really fun to work with him. So we all we had our weekly meetings, and I always was looking forward to our meetings because it's all fun, and he always had work that he wanted to show. He's really hardworking, so that's why we got so many results, because he's really hardworking guy. So it's I'm sure he will do well in industry or in academia, whatever he wanted to do. But one thing that he doesn't have such a high self-esteem, or it's hard to convince him that he's doing a good job. So I'm glad that you all were able to see his work and his abilities in communicating and in writing and mathematical talent. So it's all apparent to everyone. So I hope that this comes apparent to him also soon. So unfortunately, he's decided to leave academia. So he recently started the job, but we will always have our doors open whenever you want to come back for a postdoc or for something else. All right, thanks, Leo.
Well, thank you a lot. It was really nice working these 6 years. Gabriel didn't want to say it, but in the first time, I got completely massacred in my first year by Gabriel. and then it's very nice. It's very fun that how things turned out, and now he's my advisor for 6 years. It's very nice. So I learned a lot, definitely. I was afraid of being a dead body in the group, but thank you. You really taught me a lot. You all. You, Héctor, Nino, Felipe, Walter, Ellen, everybody.
Okay, so now the board should meet privately to decide Leo's future. So let me send in the chat a link for a Google Meet linking. I hope this works. So we should mute our microphones and our cameras here in Zoom, and we should move to the other room and then come back here. Héctor and Nino, please, you can join also, of course.
Just a question, is this still being recorded? Oh, yeah.
So Gabriel, I just click on the Google link.
I think you're muted, Gabriel.
Yes, I think that Gabriel muted.
You can simply follow the link and yes, and mute here your voice.
So now this is the time where I hold myself up to not say anything stupid because it's still being recorded. Okay.
Gabriel esqueceu, né? Saiu muito rápido também, né? Se alguém não entendeu, aí alguma coisa e tal.
Ah, é?
Para.
So sorry, let me clarify. I just click on the Google link and then I go to the private room.
Yes, that's it.
Let me click. What happens?
So I have to register for something, which I actually do not want to do, I have to admit.
Needs access to a camera and microphone so that other places can see. You know, this Meet will ask you to confirm this decision. Okay.
I wonder if Gabriel is hearing.
I'm here, but I'm having trouble hearing.
Or perhaps it's better if we all go out of the room and then we come back when you sign.
I think to myself as well.
So now I'm in. Let me check something wrong.
Stopped. Record.
So I don't know if
You are also connected.
impressão minha, você pode falar já.
Eu não sei.
Estou usando o chat para conversar.
Então, eu não tenho certeza. Para, tá transmitindo, será ainda?
Não. Não sei.
YouTube.
Calma aí. Acho que está transmitindo, sim.
Ah,
Ok.
Não, parece que acabou, sei lá. Eu coloquei aqui, parece que está passando, mas será que eu não coloquei bem no finalzinho? Não estou vendo eu falar? Não, está transmitindo, sim. Tá bom, transmitir não tem problema. O que eu tenho medo é o professor lá, o Zoom, né? Dele não ter conseguido fechar o microfone dele do Zoom.
Ah, é. Pensava que você estava com medo de falar besteira.
Bom, falar besteira em português pode falar.
Verdade.
E aí, Mito? E aí, Ellen? Tudo bem com vocês?
Tudo bem.
No Japão já está a vida normal já?
Não.
Como tá? A aula é presencial ou ainda online?
A aula começa só em abril, mas a princípio híbrido.
A gente volta presencial agora em abril aqui também. Acho que a Unicamp começou agora em março. A Europa que parece que já está, né? Deixou tudo já. Tudo normal, praticamente.
Eu vi que tem lugar que não usa nem máscara mais, né?
O Rio de Janeiro anunciou que não precisa mais de máscara, né? Nem em lugar fechado. Acabou.
Vai ser o teste.
Mas todo lugar que o pessoal fez isso, depois
Voltou.
tiveram né? Uma coisa. Tem um pouco de bom senso.
É. Acho que todo mundo tá voltando para essa sala aqui. Menino de volta.
Oi, Helen, como vai? Tudo bem? Mito?
Oi, menino. Vou me mutar de novo.
We are coming back.
Is this the moment that I cry, or is this the moment that I celebrate?
Unfortunately, you have to wait a few more minutes to
Both.
Are we all here? Héctor, Jérôme? Yeah, I think we are all here. So we, after some technical difficulties, we were able to discuss your future. So we are very happy to inform that you were approved in your PhD defense with the highest merits. So they also they were willing to write some recommendation letters in case we want to apply for some type of prize, national prize. So we should be doing this soon. So yeah, that's it, Leo. Congratulations. You can now celebrate.
Oof. I'm gonna tell my mom. I'm gonna tell my mom and my wife. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. I don't know what to say except for thank you a lot, thank you a lot. I was really afraid and really terrified just for you to know. Thank you all for that.
You have done brilliant because people know this kind of difficult stuff, hard stuff. I think all the experts here, they know it. Great. Also, I'm very happy to see people from all over the world, right? As I mentioned to other guys, this committee is really unique for people from different continents, North America, South America, Europe, Asia. I can see some colleagues, Elaine and Professor Fukuda also from Asia, France, from Germany. It's a wonderful organization, right? I'm really appreciative. It's not easy, I attended many SIME organization meetings. Normally you have people from let's say California, from Germany, from Europe. It's very difficult to organize panel discussions. Normally I had to attend a meeting at 11 p.m. It was very bad. Sometimes you had to attend a meeting the whole night. For some committees, right, they have a debate, heavy debate, right? But for our committee, I think the timing is perfect, at least for me, right? Now it's so I can easily go to bed. but not for Japan, it's also okay, right?
I think if defense early in the morning is also not the worst thing, Leonardo, or just waiting all the day is also not the best thing.
Yeah. So also very good to see many people from Brazil, because lots of colleagues, I will say your names, right, from reading your paper and the conferences. But for many of you, it's for me the first time to know your faces, right? It's like Walter and Luis and yeah, some Japanese friends, I have seen them already. So, Jérôme, I have seen him many times, and Héctor many times. Gabriel, maybe we also have not met before, right?
Yeah, I don't think we have met. Yeah.
Yeah, that time we met. Also, Roberto, I think, saw his face. So it's a very great pleasure to see Gabor is in good condition now, right? So
yeah.
So I'm still planning to fly to Lehigh University to attend this continuous optimization conference. I don't know if you guys want to go there or not. I'm still not know, because Hong Kong is in very poor, bad condition now. We have 30,000 cases every day now in small city, right? So people a little bit panic. But hopefully 7 months later I can fly to New York City. I don't know.
I mean, I will go in person, definitely.
But you will, right?
Yeah.
I know that people for informed optimization meetings, I think lots of people are attending the meeting currently now in person already, right?
Yeah.
But in Asia, different. How about Japan? In Japan, can you travel now?
I'm sorry?
Oh, it's
So how about Japan? In US, you can travel now, right? In person now.
No.
I don't know the situation in Japan.
And travel so easily. It's increasing the number of people with corona. So
you can fly now?
we can fly, but usually people don't do that.
Oh, don't do that. Okay. But in US, they can. In Europe, how about Europe? So Patrick, Jehol, how about Europe? You can fly now?
Yeah, we can, but yeah, also the infection numbers are rising again, but I think they are close to just stopping all the restrictions here, at least in Germany. I can only speak for Germany. Yeah, we also spoke about flying to Lehigh, but so at least our working group is still not came up with the final decision.
Okay, sure. This we don't know, because 4 months from now is nowadays too long, right?
You guys meet in person? Definitely.
Yeah. How about Brazil? Brazil is in good condition now?
The case here is going down, but it's not so low yet. I plan to go to Lehigh.
Okay. So anyhow, and also I think lastly, I still need to say congratulations to Mito. I think Leon Mito, I think called Dr. Mito now, right? I think I hope I can see all of you, at least the majority of you, and in Lehigh. Hopefully we can, right? If not, we meet you guys in the near future. I think now I will leave and take care to the sleep. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you,
for
Professor.
presence.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye to everyone.
Bye, Felipe.
Bye-bye, everyone. And Leonardo, all the best for your future, whatever comes up there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
And may I ask you, Leo?
Okay, então.
May I ask you, Leo? Yeah, you are working for a company, as far as I understood. So you can tell us who you work with and for, or?
Yes, it's actually a startup. It's a Brazilian startup. It's a loan agency. I was telling
Say it again. It's a loan agency, you said?
Yes, it's a loan company. It's specialized in loans.
Okay.
I think it's more of a. Ellen asked me if it was research and development, but it's not. It's more like database based. I think the work itself is basic, but the people aren't very nice, and the company is very nice. The environment is very nice.
Okay, though it's quite far from what you've done during your PhD. So
yes, I'm learning everything from zero, from scratch.
Yeah, but it's crazy. So you completely changed because you wanted to change, or because the opportunity is excellent, or because you're tired of SDP?
Serious. Yeah.
I actually don't know for sure. I think it's a mixture of everything. I think, yeah, it's quite of a mixture. And mostly because the rules of academia are weird to me, something like this.
No, but that's okay. But you could have got a position, I don't know, in a company where you still do optimization and maybe nonlinear SDP applied to, I don't know, something, and so it sounds very different.
Yes. I think this wasn't actually a possibility, but mostly because I think Brazil is quite behind of the usual industry, and I don't think people use more sophisticated theoretical heavy stuff yet.
No, but it's okay, because I imagine yourself at the interview for the job and you say, okay, I have one math programming, one math of OR, and these papers, I have 5 preprints, and they would say, I don't know, we don't care. Or...
It was basically it. But mostly because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it went well finally, so that's good, and that's probably for the best for you. So good chance for your new job, and see you guys at the next conference.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presence.
Jérôme, sorry, have you heard us? Yeah, Untitled. Well, so people are surprised, Leo, that you don't continue in academia. So I think you catch the message, right? Very well.
Mito here is also my group.
Yeah, can I say something? So, I think most of the things that I was thinking, all the people said, but I was thinking now that if you are maybe could try to do some postdoc outside Brazil, and also I know very, very talented people that moved to the industry recently, and I was very shocked by this, like the Google and Amazon and some consulting companies, but they are top students from the US universities. So maybe in Brazil, Google, I don't know how is the research, but at some point, like 6 months or 1 year, you can try to go some companies that has doing research. And because of the pandemic, all the people work remotely. So I think even in some companies like Google, Amazon, they talk in English with the fellows in the US or Europe. So I think you can do a lot of research there.
You know, I appreciate the advice.
Okay. And also I'm joining Leonardo because I'm going also to India.
Yes. Well, I think I just want somewhere where I have plenty of stuff to do. I think that this is the summary. I just want a place where there is much work to be done. And yeah.
But Leo, I have also experienced that even some small companies are trying to construct some ERD departments. This is not very unusual. Well, perhaps not now, but most of them, after some time, they start to do that. But in my experience, what I've seen from students is that the topics are for sure not that that the high level you are working now. It's something quite different. But in big companies, it can be a case that you are coming closer to this level, but it takes some time. But even for small companies, that can be the case.
Yeah.
So I wish you all the best, Leo. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye, friends.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, Walter.
Bye. See you.
See you. Oh.
Ciao, chicos.
Ciao.
Bye. Pleasure.
Bye. Bye, Héctor.
Congratulations, Leo.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if we see us again this week or not.
Perhaps yes. No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Wait.
Leo, I think you are the host. Can you stop the streaming?
Was it streaming? Okay.
Ah,
Stop.
okay.